Welcome to Fridays with Anne. This is a series of conversations with Belgian homeopath Anne Vervaeke about homeopathy. I will ask her curiously whatever confuses me in homeopathy, like case taking, case analysis, or theory in general, and Anne will answer according to her insights, experience, and most recent findings. You, the viewer, are invited to participate actively, so please feel free to send in comments and questions. For more information on Anne and her work, please follow these links, which will also be posted below every video. And now today's episode of Fridays with Anne. Hello, Anne.
Hi, Joost.
Here we are again on a Friday.
Yes.
And last time we spoke about bacteria, the bacteria kingdom, so to say, and let's say bacteria as a vital remedy for patients. So we identified that the bacteria are not only intercurrent, like nosodes are not only intercurrent remedies, but they can also be vital remedies for patients. And we didn't really, I know there is more to talk about, so we didn't really finish up the topic. So I would like to come back to this and give you the opportunity to share some more of your insights on this topic. So first of all, you already named a few factors that we can use to identify a bacteria case. And I would like you to elaborate a bit more on how we can spot the case and so that I get a better feel for this.
Yeah, good. Because I felt also after the talk it was not complete. So we talked about the patient will have a lot of physical complaints, functional complaints, multiple diagnoses. No diagnosis really fits. He has this unexisting chronic state of acute. He has this elaborated talk on all his symptoms and all the things he does and all the things he avoids and his diets and we have the idea it's all the pathology, it's superficial. Why doesn't he come to the crux of the case, to the heart of the matter, to being? And then we said, yeah, but that is his being. His sensation is, I'm sick. I want to be healthy like everybody. I want to be normal like everybody. Not a good citizen, but just have a normal body with normal energy who is able to do the normal things. That is what he's trying to achieve with all his restrictions and diets and his focus on enough rest and whatnot. So we have health and disease as opposition. We have the idea of I'm a diseased person and I should do things to become normal. It's not normal. Other people can walk so far. I get exhausted. Other people can eat these things. I get nauseous. I cannot do what normal people can do. That is more or less where we ended. And the feeling, feeling of being weak. Like I'm weak. I'm not strong. I'm born weak. I've always been sick. They will say I've always been sick. Since childhood, I was always ailing with this and then the other. I had lots of antibiotics, but not. But that's not all of it. The real bacteria mind is very specific. And after seeing a few cases, I was able to define it as, and even had to look in the dictionary, because the word is there in our rubrics. It says obsequiousness. You ever heard the word?
Yeah, in your book, I think. That's when I looked it up.
I had no clue what it was.
Yeah, but it fits well when I looked it up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's in the book Beyond Our Mind and Body. We have this nosode case there, the patient with the streptococcinum, with gland case, let's say. And she had this, what is obsequiousness? This kind of servile attitude, this kind of submissive attitude, like you have to say this, so there's no question about is this a good idea or not, they follow. But the thing is, they go from the one therapist to the other, and everybody is bound to say something different. So the other doctor says something different, the opposite, and then she does the opposite.
Yeah.
Then they go to yet another one, and they said something completely different, and then they change again. And you ask yourself in the end, don't you have a mind of your own? You know, can't you think for yourself? Why do you follow contradictory advices? There are things that are suitable and things that are not. Some advices they would follow for years without any result. Following, I don't know what diet, because somebody said so, or it's the trend of the time, and then they won't touch that food stuff. Does it change anything? No, not particularly, you know.
Yeah.
So you could call it yielding, but it's not really yielding. It's like they have no own will. And in the books we find with some nosodes no will, or weakness or will of will. It is even in the provings, and that's what you see with your patients. It's like they obey, but in a way that they justify. You know, they justify. They're not, oh yeah, I'm a very obedient person, so I do what everybody does. No, they, even that reflection is not there. Like, I am like this, and I behave like this because that's not even there. And as a homeopath, you get confused with those cases, because since there is no, like, in essence, like an own idea, an own will, like, this is what I think, this is what I like. Since this is not there, they say a lot of things that other people say, like they what is fashionable, they will say, even when it's contradictory. And you get confused because you think, this patient, I can't get the picture. Yeah, it's only fact level, it's only superficial. That keep talking about all the details about their disease. I don't know what disease they have in the first place. And then you cannot fix them in one of your boxes. It's not a plant, it's not a mineral, it's not an animal. They mostly end up in minerals because they're second dimension cases anyway. And you think they're boring, so they end up in the second dimension remedy, which will be a minute until you know better. And you think the confusion is yours. So they're for homeopaths, they're very frustrating. And you know, and then you lean back and say, oh, I know this, that's a bacterium, that's clear. You think it's you who was unable to make a coherent picture.
Yeah, so it's not only in this area with following the advice, instructions from doctors, or because I would expect this is also, something not so unusual that people just follow whatever the doctors say because they're still the gods in white. But it's not only in this area then.
No, of course, when people have problems and symptoms, they look for advice, and it's a good idea to follow the advice that you paid for, right? So that is not a strange thing in itself.
No.
It's like they have no idea about it. They keep doing it without result. They can do it for years, and they can switch from one diet to another because they're very focused on diets and food. Food is very important for bacteria, very important. So they will never leave the house without food or without being sure that they have enough food. I even had once a Monera case, and she was talking about all her travels and rucksack travels, you know. And so, what do you have in your rucksack? Yeah, it's heavy because you carry food. I think if there's one thing you shouldn't carry if you travel, is a lot of food, unless you are in, I don't know, in the jungle. But she wasn't traveling in the jungle. I mean, the chances that you get some food on your track is big. So you don't have to. She was not doing this kind of tracks, like not in the mountains for 3 days. But the food was the most important thing that she was carrying, the most heavy stuff. And you know, when you're a woman and you're not that strong, you know, you have to look for the priorities, and it was clear that her priority was food.
I see.
Yeah. So
it's they're not questioning things, right? They're not making up their mind about things.
No, it's as if there is no mind, as if there is no own idea. You will ask yourself, what do you think? What is your point of view?
Mm-hmm.
What did you discover? Whom do you believe?
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a patient I told you about. She's a Buddhist, right? So she tells all kinds of things that the Buddha would say, or some, posture that you're supposed to take. And that will be confusing because you think how spiritual. But it's not. It's Buddha's mind. It's not hers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're trying normally to find out what is the attitude behind this action or this statement that drove you.
Yes.
And in this case, it's very difficult to find it out. That's what I get. Yeah.
It was difficult, but she ended up in the hospital with some acute episode, and she was looking at people actually dying because she was in the emergency. And of course, we asked, how did you feel and what did you think? And then we got the lecture of Buddha.
Mm.
That was the moment it was the clearest. And we always ask for like these crisis moments, of the things with a lot of impact, what was in your life very important. Of course, if you're in an emergency state or in a danger of dying, that's probably one of the things that they will tell you. And so if you ask then, how did you feel then? You would expect an authentic feeling, no?
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I told you, the lecture of Buddha came up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. Right. So this is a bit more about understanding the mind, the mental side of the bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
So is this this applies to all the Monera that you have seen, right?
Yes, in different degrees. So this at the first glance yielding attitudes, you might think Pusatila maybe a soft person, but it's not that relation you have with the patient. Even though they will ask for your advice and they will follow your advice, very strict because you said so.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not able to think about themselves, which is of most importance, and what is a detail. So they will follow it meticulously, But it's not yielding. The yielding is like, I want to have a good rapport with you,
Mm-hmm.
There's no distance between me and you, I can.
It has a pleasing aspect.
Yeah, the pleasing, the feeling with you, that's a Pusatila like yielding. It's not that. It's a more rigid, if you want, a more distant kind of following your advice, and it's not again a parasite. Some are, but not all of them. Bacteria are parasites because the parasitic quality you could also call yielding, but that's really too much yielding, If you go into it, the yielding is that intense that if you question the patient, whether he says it or not, the message is, I have no say. So even if they want to go in the right direction, they feel they have to go in the left because somebody said, or the person he or she is dependent on goes to the left. He has no say. So there is an idea, I want to go this direction, but I can't. And if you ask, why can't you? The explanation is, even if I tell them, they will disregard it. Even if I show my feelings, they will not take it into account, or they will press me, or they will secretly change the rules so I don't know what is best. So I want to do my best. I want to please others. I want to do what they ask from me, but they changed the rules. They didn't tell me, and then they try to get rid of me. That's the parasitic feeling, Which of course is true. I mean, if you think about it for 1 second, in daily life, if you have a parasite, you try to get rid of it, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And that's the basic feeling of the parasite. So it's at the first glance, it's also yielding.
Yeah.
Yielding is the thing you have to differentiate. But there's a different kind of, let's say, Pulsatilla yielding, or bacteria yielding, or bacteria parasite, or parasite whatever, no bacteria, but the parasite. Then the yielding is like, of course, which is literally, my life depends on doing what the other does.
Can this also be confused now that you say this? And as we're already in the second dimension, can this also be confused with the second row, lithium or beryllium? Beryllium, maybe?
Yeah, because you think about the symbiotic relationship, right?
And following and being very dependent on what someone tells me or what someone says, and a yielding attitude.
Yes, but the second row of the periodic table has this symbiotic relationship, which is a little bit different. It is like, I am you. They are still one, like the baby in the womb.
Yeah.
Like, you and me are one organism. Yeah, it's not I live from you while you try to get rid of me. That's parasite. Parasite is sometimes kind of bitter or angry. They're angry and bitter and dignified, because why do they do this to me? You know?
Yeah, malarial, so to say.
Yeah. Why don't they tell me what I want? Why do they force me to do this while I don't want it? And then you think, well, then stop it. Yeah. They can't. We've seen a patient once who was, he said, my wife tries to get rid of me for many, many years. Yeah, she tries to divorce me for many, many years. And by the way, she was a lawyer. And I said, so why do you stay in the house? And he couldn't answer. He couldn't answer. And it was like the relationship was over for a long time. So why did he stick around? He couldn't tell. He said his wife was, the only thing she tried was to get him out of the house and to get rid of him. Yeah? And when we asked what went wrong in the relationship, it basically came down to, it was a marriage because we loved each other, and then she changed the rules. And then I couldn't fulfill her wishes, and then she tried to get rid of me. She turned her back on me. That's, of course, from a particular point of view. Yeah. The second row is something completely different. They have this symbiotic relationship, like one organism.
Okay. So this parasitic feeling, this applies to bacteria, yeah?
Yes, of course, there are other organisms who are parasitic. Yeah? But I've seen it in, like, well, insects as well, of course.
Yeah.
We have lots of parasitic insects, so that's not an area where you find this parasitic quality.
No, of course, no. I was gonna ask, does this also apply to viruses?
Not that I've seen. Not that I've seen. They are completely different, basically. In the beginning, I thought viruses and bacteria is one group. Then, when I've seen more viruses and more bacteria, I would say that viruses have a different mindset altogether. They might have this, at the first glance, similar pattern of complaints. That means they have some vague disease. You don't know exactly what's wrong with them. They have multiple diagnoses. They have chronic states of functional problems, and nobody really knows what it is. And so in the beginning you think, uh-oh, Manara. But then the mind is so completely different. And that's why we had to talk about mind in this session more. In the first, let's say, on the pathological level, it will be hard to differentiate. But the mindset of a virus, I found, is in fact completely different. What they do is they want to know So it's a bit the contrary. They want to know everything about everything, but not like a professor, but out of sheer curiosity. They're interested in about everything. And I once had a patient who said, at 18 years old, I think everything is interesting. Now, that's the contrary of what you hear most of the time of patients that age. And I said, oh, yeah, everything is a lot. What do you mean? And he said, roads, cars, bridges, houses. He thought everything was interesting while he was sitting in the back of a car. And I mean, he was serious. It was not a joke. So interested in everything. I've seen patients with many, many studies, for instance. Why? And they don't even have to finish them because their aim is not to have a job in this particular area. They're not ambitious in that way, but they want to learn. So they might even stop just before the end, or they might have a diploma and never do anything with it, and then do something completely different. It's not the specialization of the first study. It's something completely different. And then again, something completely different, because it's all interesting. They will try different things because they want to see different people of different social environments as well. So your chances are bigger when you go to different schools, different towns, different social groups. They want to discuss with about everybody, about everything. Why? To know what another person thinks. Because, and I heard more than one patient say so, another might have a solution that I haven't thought about yet. So that means his solution I can use. I can add it to my, my toolkit.
Yeah.
And so in general, what you get is this picture.
They must be brilliant scientists.
Maybe, but they don't specialize.
Because they seem open. They seem open to unexpected results.
Yes, but they don't have the ambition.
Yeah.
A scientist ideally has the ambition to find out something, to explore something, and that particular thing, this area of exploration, to understand it deeper, and maybe later extrapolate it to other areas. But most of the time, they're quite focused on a definite territory that they will do research on. While the virus is very open, but his aim is not to learn something new that nobody knew before. At the contrary, he wants to know what everybody already knows. He wants to know what is there to know, because, and that's his aim, to be able to adapt to any circumstance. And that's exactly what the virus tries to do, or what the virus does. It's so adaptable, it mutates very easily, depending on the environment. And the people, viruses, they have this, of course, unconscious need to be like ready and able to adapt at any changing circumstance. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It's interesting how it gives insight about the nature of them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so they might not fit very well in the same group of Monera then.
Not with the mindset. Like the physical, the pathology, the way they report it might be more or less the same. Like they might say, I'm weak, or I'm weaker than somebody else, or, I heard this also in one of the books. One of the viruses said, the Epstein-Barr virus, when I'm ill, I said, what do? I eat double as I used to eat. Why? Because, I need extra fuel for my immune system to overcome my disease, and I already need fuel for my, my system to keep working. So she ate double. You ever heard that? That a sick person eats double?
Not when they're sick, normally, no.
No, and that would sound to me more virus than bacteria as well. Like eat themselves healthy, eat a lot.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is a bit of a differentiation between viruses and bacteria. What we haven't spoken about yet, which falls also into this, is the role of, well, miasmatic diseases.
Yeah, yeah.
What is your understanding, or where do they fit?
Yes, if you've seen the schemes for radar opus, you've seen that there are two groups. I grouped them in the miasmatic nosal prescriptions, and then, like, let's say the nosal prescriptions, and the miasmatic ones. I use Sankaran's more extended list of miasm. So he has 10. It's not always sure whether he incorporates SORA or not. If he does, we have 10. If he doesn't, we have 9. So that's with the acute miasm included as a chronic state of being in an acute miasm. And the classical miasms, the SORA and syphilis, then the two that are added after Hahnemann's death, tuberculinum, tubercular miasm, and cancer miasm. And then Sankaran added a few more. He added the acute, the one between acute and SORA, is the typhoid. Between SORA and psychosis is ringworm, and he added leishmaniasis between psychosis and syphilis. So he explained it very well with a nice image of a person going on a trip and his car breaks down, and then the possible reactions. So he calls them coping up mechanisms. How do you see reality? How do you perceive reality? And how do you react? How do you cope with your perceived reality? And so we have this list with keywords, which is very easy to use. So we have acute, of course, is panic, which is not difficult. We have SORA, which is a hopeful idea that with effort you will overcome your problem. And we have the in-between typhoid, which is crisis, and etc., etc. So you can look in the list. And to me, if I can boil down the whole case to nothing else, but really nothing else than the keyword, then he gets a nosode, a miasmatic nosode. And I've seen those cases, like patients talking for 2 hours, whatever you ask, the answer is change. Even if they don't say it literally, but they will have a need. It's a condition to be okay. It's always a survival mechanism, the need for change. And since it's a tubercular miasm, that means it's potentially fatal. So it's a very deep need. It's a need that is there day and night. Not only confronted with the problem, but always there. And I even had a patient who went to another homeopath before for a chronic problem, and she always aggravated after the remedy, and then went back to her original state. So she never improved. And she said, and she went there for years. I mean, for 6 years or 7 years. Her father finally brought her to me, like, try another homeopath, you know?
Yeah.
This can never be a tuberculitis.
Yeah. It's a counter keynote.
Absolutely. We have in the book, go from one doctor to the other. But when I questioned her, like, why did she stay so long? She says, whenever I take remedy, something happens. Something changes. I said, yeah, what changes? Yeah, my feeling in my belly changes, my intestines, my digestion. So even a change for the worse was better than nothing. And that's how deep it goes. As long as it's a change, it doesn't have to be a change for the better. It just has to be something different. And another tuberculinum case I saw, basically, she couldn't do anything for 2 hours in a row. She was a student homeopathy. She couldn't listen to the lessons all day. Why not? Because it's too long. So what do? You travel so far, you paid so much. She said, nothing particularly. I go out, I make a walk, then I eat something, then I go in again. And after an hour, I get restless. I go out, I make a walk. So her whole day was, I just have to change, do something. Why? If you're tuberculinum, that's your answer.
Yeah, wow. All right. Okay. So following those keywords, we could identify the miasmatic no sort vital remedy cases.
If there's nothing else,
yeah,
if all the examples they give you on the different levels they give you is only this.
Yeah.
Cancer is chaos is fatal. If your case boils down to this, and there's no plant, there's no animal, there's no mineral showing up, because it's also a pointer that the others are lacking, that are missing. You don't have any symptom that you can refer to one of these kingdoms. So we cannot make a plant of it when a patient doesn't give you a sensation. We cannot make an animal of it if they don't give you a sensation of animals.
Yeah, I see. Right.
So these two things.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we spoke about the further pointers to recognize the bacteria cases, and also what the mind of a bacteria is like, or how it frustrates us in a consultation, and why. And also what it can be easily, or what it's similar to, what it can be confused with, like parasites or other parasites. And differences with viruses, and also more specific details about viruses as a thing, or as a species, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a special group apart, but maybe it is.
Yeah. And finally, disease states, chronic or acute states of diseases that turn into chronic perceptions of reality, and which we refer to as miasm or miasmatic remedies. So in the next episodes, I would like to continue speaking about families or groups of remedies. We have a couple more that I'd like to cover with you. So thank you very much for this one.
It's my pleasure again.
I look forward to speaking to you soon. Next Friday.
Next Friday. See you then. Yeah. Bye.
See you then. Bye, Anne.